The saloon doors banged open just as the piano stopped. Dust swirled through the warm lamplight, and every head in the room turned. A woman stood framed in the doorway, her dress road-worn, her face half-shadowed under a wide hat. "I'm looking for my husband," she said, voice steady as a drawn pistol. "Name's Wade Harlan." The whiskey glass froze halfway to Wade's lips. He sat at his usual corner table. Same hat, same silence, same scars that kept folks from asking too many questions. Only now the quiet that protected him turned against him. He rose slow. "Ma'am," he said, "I reckon you got the wrong man." The woman's eyes, pale green like sage leaves, met his. "You sure about that, Wade?" A ripple of whispers broke across the saloon. Even the bartender leaned on the counter, pretending not to stare. Wade's partner in cattle, old Finch, muttered, "Hell, Wade, you married and forgot to mention it." She stepped forward, boots leaving prints in the spilled whiskey on the floor. 3 years ago outside Amarillo. "You said you'd come back for me." Wade's jaw tensed. He hadn't been near Amarillo in 5 years, not since the ambush that nearly ended his life and everyone tied to it. "Lady," he said, "if this is some kind of game—" "It ain't," she cut in. Her hand shook as she unfolded a crumpled paper from her satchel. A marriage certificate, his name, his signature. Wade stared at it. The handwriting was his, or close enough to fool a man who wanted to believe it. "Who put you up to this?" he asked quietly. Before she could answer, the front window shattered. A bullet whined past Wade's ear and buried itself in the back wall. Screams tore through the room as patrons dropped to the floor. The woman dove behind the bar, dragging Wade with her. Outside, hooves pounded down Main Street. 3 riders in dust-gray coats, faces hidden. Another shot cracked, splintering a whiskey bottle above their heads. Wade peered over the counter. "You bring this trouble with you?" Her face was pale, trembling now. "They've been following me for 2 days, she whispered. "Said if I found you, we'd both hang." "Why?" She looked him dead in the eye. "Because you're the man who killed their brother." Wade froze. The noise of the saloon faded, replaced by the slow thud of his heart. He'd buried that secret long ago. And somehow, this stranger, this woman who claimed to be his wife, had just unearthed it. As the gunfire faded into the distance, Wade rose to his feet, dusting glass from his coat. The room watched in silence as he turned to her. "Lady," he said, voice rough as gravel, "start talking. 'Cause if you ain't my wife, then you're the next best thing, my problem." The lamplight flickered across her face, catching a glint of tears she refused to let fall. The sheriff's office smelled of dust, sweat, and old regret. Wade leaned against the wall, hat low, while the stranger, who finally gave her name as Clara Dorsey, sat across from Sheriff Boone's desk, wringing her hands like a woman who'd run out of prayers. Boone squinted. "So you claim you're his wife, yet he's claiming he's never laid eyes on you. That about right?" "Yes, sir," Clara said softly. "But I can prove it." Wade folded his arms. "You already tried to." She reached into her satchel again and slid out a small leather-bound Bible. Inside the cover, written in faded ink, was his name and a date, May 6, 1884. Boone frowned. "That's your hand, Wade?" Wade studied the script. "Looks close, but close don't mean true." He looked up at her. "Where'd you get this?" Her lips trembled. "From a man named Colter Hayes." The name hit Wade like a hammer. Colter Hayes, the outlaw who'd once led his crew through half the territories, robbing stages and killing anyone who stood in the way. Wade had left that life, left it buried with the men who died on that last bloody night. "Colter's dead," Wade said. "Been dead 6 years." Clara's eyes lifted, glistening. "Then who's the man wearing his scar and using his name?" The room went silent except for the wind rattling the window pane. Boone sat back slow. "You saying there's another Colter out there?" She nodded. "He sent me to find Wade Harlan. Said if I didn't bring you back alive, he'd come finish the job himself." Wade's fists clenched. "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Because he thinks you double-crossed him, left him to hang after the Amarillo job." Wade's jaw tightened. "I never robbed Amarillo. I was shot near there. Spent months healing in a church cellar." "I know," she whispered. "Sister Agnes told me. That name stopped him cold. The nun who patched his wounds, the one who told him God still had a use for broken men." "How do you know her?" "She's my aunt." The pieces started to twist, too many to fit. The fake marriage. The forged Bible. The ghost of Coulter Hayes. All roads led back to the same question, why him? Boone rose, belt creaking. Wade, best thing you can do is lay low till I get a posse together. Wade shook his head. No posse's fast enough. If Coulter's alive, he'll come for me at dawn. Clara stood, her voice steady again. Then I'm staying. You saved my life in that saloon, whether you meant to or not. Least I can do is help you face what's coming. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. Dust still clung to her lashes, her hat brim bent from the road. She didn't look like a liar. She looked like someone who'd already lost too much. Fine, Wade said. But understand this. You lie to me again, I'll know it. She met his stare without blinking. And if I tell you the truth, Wade Harlan, can you handle it? He didn't answer. Outside, thunder rolled across the hills like hoofbeats. The night had begun to stir. By dawn, the sky was the color of gunmetal. A storm brewed low over the hills, clouds dragging their bellies across the plains like tired horses. Wade saddled his roan in silence, while Clara packed the last of her things into a burlap sack. They hadn't slept. The night had been filled with watchful eyes and the echo of thunder that wasn't thunder. You don't have to come, Wade said, tightening the cinch strap. Clara didn't look up. You think I'd be safer staying behind? He almost smiled. No, but you'd be smarter. She slung the sack over her shoulder. I ain't been smart for a long time, Wade. They rode out as the first drops of rain began to fall. The land stretched open, wide and empty, the kind of place that held secrets better than graves. When they reached the ridge above Dry Creek, Wade pulled the horses to a stop. Below, smoke curled from an old ranch house. His old ranch, the one he'd left after the war before everything turned bad. Clara followed his gaze. Yours? Was, he said. Used to be home till Coulter's gang burned it. She studied the ruins. He said you took the gold from that job. Said that's why he came back to finish it. There was never any gold, Wade said quietly. Just a chest full of army letters and the blood of men too mean to pray. The rain thickened, drumming on their hats. Clara shivered, pulling her shawl tighter. Tell me the truth now, Wade said. You said Coulter sent you. But you came alone, why? She hesitated, then reached into her coat and pulled out a folded photograph, cracked, water-stained and faded by time. A young man stood in it, arm around her shoulders. My husband, she said softly. Elias Dorsey. Coulter killed him 2 years ago. Said he'd let me live if I did what he asked. So I did. I lied my way to you. Wade stared at the picture, then at her. So you're not my wife? No, she said, but I had to make you listen. The confession settled heavy between them, like smoke that wouldn't clear. Wade's eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. You played a dangerous hand, Clara. I know. But now I'm done running. He studied her face, grief carved deep, courage flickering beneath it. You want Coulter Hayes? I want justice, she said. Then you got it, Wade said, pulling his rifle from the saddle. But when this is done, you walk away clean. No more ghosts. Lightning split the sky, throwing their faces into harsh relief. Two souls caught between vengeance and redemption. A rifle cracked from below. The bullet slammed into the rock near Wade's boot, spraying shards across his coat. He dove for cover, dragging Clara behind a boulder. Through the sheets of rain, riders appeared, 3, maybe 4, their coats dark with mud, faces hidden beneath hats. Coulter's men. Wade's pulse steadied, that old calm that came before chaos. Stay low, he whispered. I can shoot, she said, already cocking the small revolver she carried. He looked at her, surprised. You sure about that? Her jaw tightened. You ain't the only one learned to survive. They traded shots across the ridge. The rain turned to a roar, drowning the gunfire into thunder. One rider tumbled from his horse, another wheeled away, clutching his arm. Wade moved like a man fighting his own past, each trigger pull a confession. Then a sharp pain tore across his shoulder. He fell to one knee, teeth gritted against the burn. Wade! Clara cried, firing back wildly. The last rider turned tail, disappearing into the storm, leaving the ridge littered with spent shells and silence. She dropped beside him, pressing her hand to the wound. You're hit. Just a graze, he muttered. You shoot better than you lie. That earned the first real smile from her. You talk too much for a man bleeding? He looked at her through the rain. And you stay too close for a woman who claims she ain't my wife. For a moment they laughed, raw, weary laughter, the kind that hurts but heals. By nightfall the storm had broken. Mist clung to the broken fences and blackened timbers of the old Harlan ranch. The air smelled of wet cedar and gunpowder. Wade sat by the dying fire in the ruined barn, shirt torn where the bullet had grazed him. Clara stitched the wound with shaking hands, her breath catching each time he winced. "You ever done this before?" he asked. She gave a faint smile. "Fixed mules. Can't be much different." He chuckled low. "Mules kick less." The sound faded into the hush of crickets and dripping rain. Somewhere in the distance an owl called. It felt too peaceful, like the quiet before a bad dream starts again. "You think he'll come tonight?" Clara asked. "He'll come," Wade said. "Coulter don't like leaving debts unsettled." He pushed to his feet, checking his rifle, his knife, the old revolver that had once saved his life and ruined it all at once. Clara watched him, the firelight carving hard lines across his face. "What'll you do when he shows?" "Depends," Wade said. "If he wants blood, I'll give him truth instead." A distant clatter of hooves broke the silence. Then another. Then many. Wade's eyes narrowed. "Get down!" Clara blew out the lantern, plunging the barn into darkness. Through the cracks in the boards, torchlight flickered, 5 riders fanning out across the yard. The lead figure dismounted slow, walking with a limp, his long coat dragging in the mud. Wade's breath caught. The scar on that man's cheek glowed white in the firelight. "Coulter," he whispered. The outlaw's voice carried like gravel in wind. "You always were hard to kill, partner." Wade stepped into the open doorway, rifle leveled. "I ain't your partner no more." Coulter's laugh was low, bitter. "Then who was it burned the ranch? Who pulled that trigger in Amarillo and left me to hang?" "That wasn't me," Wade said. "That was you. You couldn't stand that the men started following orders from someone who still had a soul." Coulter's eyes gleamed with madness. "Soul? You think that'll save you now?" He raised his pistol. "You and that pretty liar of yours are both ghosts after tonight." Before he could fire, Clara stepped from the shadows behind Wade, revolver aimed steady. "No one else dies for your sins, Coulter." Coulter blinked, almost amused. "Ah, the widow. You play your part well, darling. But you ain't faster than me." He drew too slow. Wade fired first. The shot echoed off the hills. Coulter staggered back, clutching his chest. His gun went off wild, the bullet grazing Wade's temple before burying itself in the doorframe. The other riders scattered, some firing, some fleeing. Clara dropped behind a trough, shooting back with calm precision. The night exploded with gunfire and shouts. Wade stumbled forward through the smoke, blood running down his temple. Coulter lay in the mud, coughing red. "Should have let me hang," Coulter rasped. "Would have been kinder." Wade crouched beside him. "Maybe, but you don't get to haunt this land no more." Coulter's eyes rolled toward Clara. "She lied to you, Wade. She used you." "Just like I said." Wade looked at her, soaked, trembling but standing her ground. "Yeah," he said softly. "But she stayed when you wouldn't." He raised his gun once more, then stopped. Coulter's breath rattled. "Finish it." "No," Wade said. "You already buried yourself." He tossed the revolver into the mud and turned away. Coulter's hand twitched for his gun one last time, but Clara fired first. The echo rolled across the empty plains, then faded into rain. She dropped the revolver, staring at the body. "He would have killed you." "I know," Wade said quietly. "That's why I couldn't pull the trigger." For a long moment they just stood there, the fire dying, dawn bleeding pale light over the hills. Then Wade reached out his uninjured hand. "Come on, time we start living for something other than ghosts." Clara took it, her fingers cold, steady. 3 days later, the wind carried the smell of rain and sage instead of gunpowder. The town of Dry Creek went back to its rhythms, cattle wagons creaking, children chasing dogs, and the church bell marking time like nothing had happened. At the edge of town, a new fence line stretched across Wade Harlan's old property. The boards were straight this time, not like before when he'd built them alone in anger. Clara hammered in the last nail, wiping sweat from her brow. "You're leaning to the left again," Wade called from the porch, arm still in a sling. She looked back, grinning faintly. "Then you best come fix it, cowboy." He laughed, soft, honest. A sound that had been gone from him for too many years. The lawmen had taken Coulter's body away at sunrise. Sheriff Boone said Wade could have claimed the bounty, but Wade told him to give it to the orphan fund. "Too much blood money in my hands already," he'd said. Now, as the sun dipped low, The land around them felt different, lighter, as if the earth itself had exhaled. Clara joined him on the porch. The evening breeze tugged at her hair, turning it to gold in the fading light. "Never thought I'd see this place alive again," she said. Wade nodded. "Didn't think I'd live long enough to care." Silence stretched between them, not heavy this time, but peaceful. She looked down at her hands. "I lied to you, Wade, from the first step I took into that saloon." He met her eyes. "And I killed a man I once called brother. Guess we both got sins we're trying to bury." She swallowed hard. "You forgive me?" Wade smiled slow. "I figure the good Lord's already half done with that job. No harm me finishing it?" Her eyes glistened. "You don't owe me nothing." "Maybe not," he said. "But maybe I owe myself something, like learning to trust again." They watched the sun sink behind the ridge, painting the sky in fire and mercy. The world had burned, but somehow it still held beauty. A lone horse neighed in the distance. Clara turned. "You gonna stay?" Wade looked over the land. The house half rebuilt, the soil dark and rich from rain. "I ain't much of a man if I don't finish what I started." She smiled. "Then I guess I'll stay too. Someone's got to make sure your fences don't fall." He tipped his hat, the faintest grin breaking through the scarred lines of his face. "Then we'll build something that lasts." They stood together side by side, the silence speaking more than words could. The last light of day caught the bandage on his arm and the silver locket at her throat. Reminders of wounds and love, both earned the hard way. The rebuilt ranch, the endless plains, the sky opening up to a promise of tomorrow. Wade's voice lingers like a quiet prayer. "Ain't about how many times a man gets shot at. It's what he does after the bullets stop flying that tells you who he is." If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen to watch another unforgettable Western tale where destiny and courage collide under the setting sun. Don't forget to subscribe for more Wild West stories of redemption, love and justice.